Okay. So, with the difficulty of explaining the direct experience of presence, stillness, emptiness, I thought I would do a little practical exercise so that maybe if there's anyone watching this, they'll be able to experience it for themselves. So we'll start off by moving into stillness, into presence, and we'll use this as a little guided meditation. Excuse me. And we'll inquire about our experience as it happens. So it might help, it's helped to me, even through the medium of technology and video. If you look directly into my eyes whilst we're doing this, it will help move the excess conditioning out the road, and will help us move into clarity. So we'll move into presence, bring our attention here. Firstly, we'll begin by taking a big breath. We'll do it a couple times. Just be acutely aware of our presence, all the sensations and the stillness. So let's begin by watching for the next thought, in whatever form it comes, even if it's very subtle, like an echo. Watch. What will the next thought be? If anything comes up at all at any point, just observe it without resistance. Don't pick it up. Also, don't resist it. Don't fight it. Just let it go. So if there's no thought, or if there is thought, doesn't matter. We're thinking in this present moment. Just this. And this is infinite, timeless, eternity, beyond time. And the mind and the ego and the self, doesn't function here. The stillness is untouchable. Bring your awareness to, or let's move our awareness from our point of focus here, out the way. Start to become aware of your breath holistically, sounds, vision, acutely aware, sensation, and the space around you. Move your awareness out the way, and we can ask, not with thought, but with direct experience, where do you begin? Where does the world begin? Where do you end? Now see that there is no distinction, because it's all one. Your environment, your immediate environment around you is you. There's no separation between you and the external world. And see that this physical person and this mind is in a dependent relationship with everything. One can't exist without the other, but they're simultaneously existing and not existing at the same time. Beyond these labels and these thoughts, don't pick up the thought, just experience that as what is, just this, all together into one. Begin to merge the senses through experience. Vision, hearing. Realize that there's no separation between these senses, that all the senses are one. The one consciousness, one intelligence perceiving itself in this moment, immediately, without any narrative or labels, just this. Again, if these thoughts come up, anything that's a thought that comes up, just let it go. Just let it be there, it's fine. Just look, observe, watch. Attention. Acutely aware of everything. And then notice your boundaries start to dissolve. And when that happens, the universe is experiencing itself through you. And you're just letting the experience of the universe flow through the person. The person is the universe, and the universe is a person. all that there is and there is not is right here, right now. And this moment's perfect. And what you are is untouchable by the troubles, the highs and lows, the good and the bad, and all the framings of the self and the person. Just pure presence, pure awareness, pure neutrality, just what is. And realize that this is all there is. Again, if a thought comes up, just let it go. Don't try and fight it. Relax into presence. Relax into it. There's no effort. Just attention. Attention. We're not picturing anything. We don't have any mental images. So for example, when you breathe in and breathe out, just the sensation, just the raw sensation. No framing, no mental image of breath, air moving, lungs, nose. As I say these things, this might pop up, these images. And notice that it's just an image that represents an idea of what is. Let go of that, or see through that. Move your awareness to that. Become acutely aware. And these framings will start to dissolve. And all you're left with is just the raw sensations. Nothing more. Move the awareness out. Notice the sounds. Be attentive. Every single detail, minute detail. The universe hearing itself. Just the sound. And realize there's no hearing, there's no seeing, just this, just sound. Not even sound, let's not label it, let's move beyond that, just this. Now, let's direct our attention. We've moved it out. Let's focus. We're focusing, but we're unfocusing at the same time. Now look at your environment. Find something to look at. Just this. With as much clarity and attention as possible. In as much fine detail as possible. Now notice if anything comes up when you perceive this. Anything at all, any feeling, any thought, any idea, any of these little frames or lenses. Become aware of them and then let them dissolve. So all there is just this. Empty. Nothing but what is. You're moving your attention out, but you're not really moving it out. You're moving it out and in at the same time. You're focusing your attention, but you're also expanding it at the same time. And realize that this is infinite, beyond the confines of time and space. And realize that the suffering is dependent on time and space. The suffering is dependent on the trappings of this illusion. And that death and life are ultimately an illusion as well. But what transcends that is right here, right now, just this. Experience that fully. You experience death, but not really death, not really life, neither and both. Complete transcendence of this story. Now, the sounds, I'm talking and you're listening. Realize that these separate forms are just an illusion, and really you're talking to yourself. The universe communicating to itself through these finite, changing temporary forms. Talking itself out of the illusion of identification. So you're talking to yourself through me. We're the same thing. One single non-entity. Infinite consciousness. Talking itself through the process of waking up. Again, don't dwell on this. Don't identify with this. These are just words. This can only be experienced directly. Just this. Simple. Just this. Continue to move the awareness out the way and in the way at the same time. Be aware of the body. Move your awareness into the body and then move the body out. Notice if you have any mental image or thought idea of the body, what shape it is, what it looks like, what it feels like. And then move through that and move out. And realize that all of this is also you. and there's no separation. Okay. So how often did the mind come up? If it came up at all? See if you can be aware of the narrative, the thoughts. They'll be very clear in the beginning, but as time goes on, when you spend more time in presence, the subtle layers will be... You'll become aware of them. The subtle layers that are very difficult to spot. They build up over time. They can't exist in the timeless. Okay, so that's 20 minutes or so. Really is very simple, but it's not simple at the same time. So I'll move on. I was talking to some people online who are waking up, and they mentioned that the catalyst, or we were talking about the catalyst for the awakening, seems to be suffering. In the same way that I explained in a previous video that the forced disassociation happens when physical or mental pain becomes unbearable. So the awareness disidentifies from the source of suffering. There seems to be a breaking point there, that beyond that, the awakening begins. So a bit about my personal experience with this. My life experience, I have noticed general mental illness, mental sickness of the mind. It's collective and seems to pervade the consciousness of people. And you begin to realise that that is you. It's just a reflection of yourself, because there's no separation. And then you begin to see it in yourself and recognise it, and again become aware of it. And with that awareness, you can start to dissolve it. So certainly in my own case, although it might not seem like it, I had this mental sickness and this immense suffering, a lot of profound suffering, that led me to this awakening. I'll not go into detail, but if I was to tell you some stories, it would seem unbelievable. And it would seem ridiculous that I'm still here. Luckily for me, it didn't result in physical death, although I came very close to that. Notably on 2 occasions, very, very close to physical death. But like I explained, the mind and the ego became suicidal and was seeking its own end. You can imagine if you're fully identified with that, then the physical death would come. But thankfully I detached from that with enough at the right time or whatever. Unfortunately, I know a good handful of friends who unfortunately did go through the physical death and didn't make it. Where I grew up, there's a lot of that sickness I described. Although it's a country where there's not extreme poverty or disease or war or anything like that. Relatively, it's a wealthy country, but there is areas where and around I lived that had this deep, depraved sickness, collective sickness of the mind. And you can see that manifesting all around. So, yeah, a lot of suffering, a lot of death. And there are some, I'll not go into detail, but there are some close, personal, familiar, or there is experience in my personal history of the horrendous suffering that played out, that obviously contributed towards this awakening. So I've been through the suffering to a horrendous extent. Again, I'll not go into details because it's not relevant. The only thing that is relevant is that the suffering was there and it was profound, and it came close to physical death. I don't think it has to be like this for everyone, but definitely the suffering is a catalyst for awakening. And you can use it. And looking back now, as horrendous as the suffering and the violence and the death was, I'm grateful for it, because the awakening, the insight gives you an appreciation, a neutral appreciation of the good and the bad. You're not swayed by it. The person can be affected by it, but deeply, you're not profoundly affected by it. And a lot of it seems to come from the fear of death. Seems to bring you closer to death. And a lot of it's characterised by this kind of existential discontent that pervades, that obscures or colours the experience of life. Through awakening, it becomes transparent, and you can see right through it. It's not solid anymore, it doesn't pull you. And you can see in a way that you chose, something chose this. There was a pull towards this suffering that, in a very similar way that there was a pull towards the awakening, but it kind of had to drag you through the suffering first. There was something wanting to experience this horrific version of reality. And that's what the bliss people talk about is, and the spiritual ecstasy is the contrast. The contrast creates that, is at least in the beginning, and you kind of go up and down, spiritual high, spiritual low, until it stabilizes eventually into just pure neutral. But strangely enough, there's a degree of separation there between the person and reality. But at the same time, the distinction is gone. There's no distinction between the two. Again, anything that I say that's contradictory is because I'm trying to explain a paradox which is inexplicable. But in my case, I had to go through the suffering in order to wake up. And now, the more boring, the better. The apathy, the boredom. I couldn't have imagined myself sitting doing this, filming a video. It's half an hour now. This would have bored the hell out of me, but there's no apathy anymore, there's no boredom, there's just neutrality. So I could quite happily just sit here in pure presence without getting tired. Maybe I get physically tired, but that mental fatigue isn't there. It's a constant neutral flow of what is. Okay, so that's my longest video ever, so that'll do for now.